Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Today we look at a man who was locked up for his role of overseeing drug deals across the northwest of England on behalf of an operation which was nicknamed Scouse JJ. Joseph Drury, known as Red, travelled from Liverpool to supply and monitor drug addicts selling crack cocaine and heroin on the streets of Cheshire. After police had raided his Croxteth home, they then discovered evidence which linked him to further drug activity in Blackpool and a drugs hotline that exchanged more than 300 calls a day, with texts from addicts every single day. Mr. Drury emerged on the radar of the police after undercover officers had been called out to break up a gathering of street dealers who had gathered together in Mansfield. Melissa Kennelly and Nathan Malkin were arrested at the scene, both swallowing a wrap of drugs in the process. Miss Kennelly told officers that there were drugs at the couple's Half Street home, and a subsequent search of the property led to the recovery of 13 £10 deals of heroin and 18 £10 deals of crack cocaine. In an interview, Mr. Malkin said that the couple were drug users who had been offered the chance to work by their drug dealer. Both Miss Kennelly and Mr. Malkin said that they resupplied 3 to 4 times a day, making between £50 and £100 between them. And Mr. Malkin's phones were analysed by the police when they were arrested, and Simon Duncan, who was prosecuting, said, "The evidence clearly shows that Mr. Malkin and Miss Kennelly were dealing on behalf of Mr. Drury and were accountable to Mr. Drury and had to report who made what drug sales. Texts which were advertising drugs on behalf of Scouse JJ were found on the phones, as well as from Mr. Drury, discussing the flow of drugs and cash. They included requests for the dealer's take-ins and instructions to send out adverts via text such as, "Lad, you need to catch the morning people." Mr. Drury was himself arrested in Mansfield the following month when police responded to concerns a child had been left at home alone by their mum. The mother was suspected of being involved in drugs at the time. As police waited outside, they saw Mr. Drury emerge from an alleyway behind a nearby row of properties and stopped him. He was questioned on suspicion of being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs, but claimed he was in town just visiting a friend. Whilst that investigation was ongoing, Mr. Drury's home on Griffin Close was raided by Merseyside police in April as part of a separate operation by police. When the officers searched Mr. Drury's home, they found heroin and crack cocaine with a combined street value of £11,000 plus £2,300 in cash, as well as scales and bags. A phone which was seized from Mr. Drury was found to be a Scouse JJ graph phone that had made hundreds of calls every day, a total of 14,614 texts and calls between February and April of 2021, as transactions were arranged and dealers were instructed where to collect their drugs. The police also found further evidence of Mr. Drury being involved in drug dealing in Blackpool. While it was accepted that Mr. Drury was not a leading figure in the Scouse JJ line, Mr. Duncan said he had played operational and management roles within the network and recruited others to work for it. Mr. Duncan, who was prosecuting, said he accepted that Mr. Malkin and Miss Kennelly, who were charged with dealing across several days in October of 2020, were way down the pecking order from Mr. Drury, but added they clearly understood the scale of the operation by reference to sheer amounts of drugs which they were dealing on a daily basis. Mr. Drury admitted being concerned in the supply of heroin and crack cocaine, and 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Mr. Malkin and Miss Kennelly pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Trevor Parry Jones, defending Mr. Drury, said that his client had become involved with the Scouse JJ operation after falling into debt himself over drugs. Mr. Jones explained, Mr. Drury said that he owed in excess of £4,000 and that the people that he owed the money to were more than content for him to keep increasing the debt. The debt came, and then of course you have to start paying them off. John Staunton, defending Miss Kennelly, said that the 26-year-old had turned to drugs after suffering personal tragedy, and that her frankness was clear during the police interview. Mr. Staunton added that the police officers commented that they had never dealt with two nicer individuals than Mr. Malkin and his client, who he said had managed to break her reliance on street heroin. Philip Tully, defending Mr. Malkin, said the 23-year-old had genuine remorse for his actions and was desperate to overcome his own drug addiction. Sentencing all three, Judge Andrew Minari QC said, "Each of you has in the past had an addiction to Class A drugs, and I accept it was, or may have been, this addiction that led each of you to deal drugs on this occasion that I am concerned with." Whilst Judge Minari accepted that there would be others above Mr. Drury in the Scouse JJ hierarchy, he said that Mr. Drury had been involved in the sale of drugs and had control of the street dealers for a significant period of time. Referring to the details of a reference and pre-sentence report that the judge had read on Mr. Drury, he did however add that Mr. Drury appeared to be someone who has a real potential to make a constructive use of their life. Judge Andrew Minari QC sentenced Mr. Drury to 4.5 years in jail. The judge said that Mr. Malkin and Miss Kennelly had an awareness of the drug scale operation, but accepted that their involvement was limited in time and its nature, warning the pair that they had come perilously close to being locked up themselves. He handed each a 2-year sentence, suspended for 2 years. Miss Kennelly, who had some previous convictions herself, was ordered to do 15 days of rehabilitation activity and 250 hours of unpaid work. Mr. Malkin, who had no previous convictions, was ordered to do 10 days of rehabilitation activity and 200 hours of unpaid work. Both Miss Kennelly and Mr. Malkin were placed on a curfew from 8 PM to 6 AM for 3 months. What are your opinions on the crimes committed by Mr. Drury, Miss Kennelly and Mr. Malkin? Do you believe the sentencing was too harsh or not harsh enough? Please let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like and share, and if you're new to the channel and you want to see more Street Crime UK content, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you can join us on the next video. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.